Jackson looked at me and he said, David needs to give Ethan up for adoption. I don't even know why he keeps him.
Yep.
So, of course, that made me bust out laughing. And Jackson's like, why are you laughing? I'm serious. Like, get rid of the bad kid.
Yeah, just take him to the pound.
Yeah, take him to the pound.
You're listening to the Nacho Kids Podcast, where we discuss all things step family related. Real stories, real people, real help. Your hosts are the creators of the Nacho Kids Method and the Nacho Kids Academy Step Family Coaching Team, Lori and David Sims.
Welcome to episode 249 of the Nacho Kids Podcast.
What's up, y'all?
The day we are recording this is actually my baby boy's 19th birthday.
He's only 5.
Oh.
I know. It's terrible. It's terrible.
It's so sad.
So I go to his bedroom door this morning, place a speaker outside the door, and start blaring happy birthday music.
It was hilarious. One of them was 80s rap music.
Yeah. Another one was some kind of Indian, Hindu, something happy birthday. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, all we could understand was happy birthday, happy birthday.
It sounded cool.
Yeah, I just cannot believe he is 19 years old. Wow. Seems like yesterday that I found out I was pregnant or in labor or telling him not to eat bugs. Oh, that was yesterday. I'm kidding. But no, shout out to my baby boy. Happy birthday. Mommy loves you.
Yep.
Yep.
Stepdaddy tolerates you.
David. He's kidding, folks. He's kidding. I want to bring that up because we did a podcast one time talking about you thought Jackson broke your tool press.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And somebody left a review on our podcast talking about how horrible it was because David accused Jackson of breaking his tool press or whatever it is, a die press or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, number one, it's like you obviously don't listen at all to know that you and I pick on each other all the time and we're talking about stuff all the time about, you know, how things are going and such. And so there's a lot of humor involved. And this person apparently had enough time and cared enough to go and leave us a negative podcast review. He's there. I listened to enough to know I never want to listen again. Okay.
Well, what I think is funny is, say somebody had never listened to our podcast, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Because there are people that might have been the first one they listened to. You could tell we were joking. I mean, if you listened past a second of that situation, you could tell we were joking about it.
Yep. Well, people get triggered. It could have been this person. It was a lady, obviously, by the
How do
name.
you know that?
It just the name of the email or not the email, but the username and everything else. And
Oh, okay.
so, it could have been that their significant other blamed their kid for something. And so they were putting all that on me. I don't know. But
Well, I can see that. Okay. If we weren't where we were and I was listening to that, or if we weren't where we were and I listened to half of what you say, I would be like, he is a douche. But you're not. You pick constantly.
yeah, I'm a button pusher.
You're a button pusher.
I have mentioned that numerous times on this podcast. So
Well, apparently we have to start it off.
if you're new to the podcast, just know I am a button pusher.
Exactly. But it does bother me that she may have been looking for help and didn't get the help she needed because that did trigger her. So if you're listening, ma'am, and you decided to give us another shot and listen to this, which I don't remember how long ago your review was. It could have been 2 years for all I know because I'm not looking at it. But we don't mean to trigger anybody with this. We do this to help people.
Yep. And our form of delivery, in most cases, has some humor built into it.
Because that's how we survived.
It is. And I know there are people out there who hate it. There are people out there who hate the fact that we're bantering right now.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Just hit fast forward.
Yeah.
Because for everyone who decides to take the time to tell me how much you hate the bantering, there's another 50 people who enjoy it. So if you enjoy it, stay. If you don't, fast forward. It's okay.
Right. And fast forward through the banter because there might be something that you're missing that could help you.
Right. Because oftentimes within our banter, there are nuggets of wisdom. So
yes.
Anyway, that's just the way we roll.
All right. So with all that being said, if you don't like our banner and you don't like listening to podcasts, join the Nacho Kids Academy.
Yeah. Or we can forcefully tell you what to do.
No, that's not what happens.
No, that is not what happens.
Nope.
We are there to absolutely help you.
Yes. This month, we will be releasing a new course on communication.
Yeah. Well, a little more specific than that. Like one specific tactic of communication. I say that because a course on communication would be like 40 hours.
Okay. So we have a course on one specific thing in communication, but we also have a plan for the other 39 hours.
We do. We have a lot of courses lined up for communication. So it's just a matter of doing them. Because we talked about maybe we should do one big course and put them all together, or not have one course per thing. But after we sat down and said, we should be able to record this first tactic in about 15 minutes. And then we finished about 45 minutes later and was like, no, we're not going to be able to do that.
Now, that's the unedited. So it might end up being 30 minutes. Who knows?
Yeah.
But the Nacho Kids Academy does offer the Nacho Kids Boot Camp, which if you joined and just took that and did the work, it would improve your relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
30 days, y'all, and you can change your relationship. It's up to you. We can't make you. And I have learned that I cannot care more than you do about your relationship.
Preach it.
Preach it. All right. Today, it's just Sweet David and I.
Is it?
Wait, I said Sweet and David together.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Today, it is David and Sweet I.
We're like sweet and sour chicken.
That's it. I know we had talked about doing one thing, but David, I'm changing up, which is not surprising. Last night, we were talking to Branson.
Yep. One of my
your
triplets. Mm-hmm.
And he had a baby in January. So the baby's almost 2 months old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he has matured greatly.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point that 20 years of wisdom that we tried to give these kids, he seems to have gotten a lot of it in the last almost 60 days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It takes sometimes like having your own kid to then spark all of these things. As a matter of fact, he even made a comment, which might be what you're getting ready to talk about, that it must be hard as a parent that you have to do all these things, hoping that one day your kid will finally realize what it is you were trying to accomplish.
Yes. Yes. And he also talked about how he doesn't want to tell his kid because I told you so. And so David and I are talking to him, and I was like, look, I tried the same thing. But your kid will go through a why stage.
Mm-hmm.
Why? So David was doing that to Branson. And then, so Branson just finally screams, because I told you so. Because you can't rationalize with a 5-year-old sometimes. But with me, my son, everybody says he's an old soul. He would make me question my own parenting because what he would say made sense. Well, I know I said it at some point, and I told Branson he will say it at some point. He will say, because I told you so. And I want him to call me when that happens. But anyway, one of the things that we talked about was he asked me specifically if there were things that I would have done differently when they got on my nerves. I said 100%, without a doubt. And I told him that when he gets older, there's going to be things that he's going to wish he would have done differently with his own kid. But one of the things that we talked about that I wish I would have done differently was not be so quick to get angry.
Mm-hmm.
But I was stressed beyond reality. And I didn't have the tools that I have now. And that's kind of what I told him was, now I have those tools. And he saw the progression once I started nachoing, how things did change with that.
Mm-hmm.
But as a parent, wife, friend, step-parent, daughter, aunt, whatever, in hindsight, 90% of the time, you are going to wish you would have handled stressful situations differently.
That's true.
So, of course, Branson wanted specifics. That's how he is. Give me specifics. I'm like, oh, great. You told me your memory sucks, and then you're telling me to use mine, which is twice the age of yours. But one of the things that I mentioned was how I would jump to Jackson's rescue. Jackson was 5 years younger than the triplets. And by my jumping to Jackson's rescue, I prevented them from forming those quote, quote, brotherly bonds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as soon as they started picking on your kid, it was a problem.
And your response to that was, leave him alone. Don't even play with him.
Mm-hmm. At the time, it absolutely was.
Right.
Because every time you play with Jackson, Jackson gets hurt or Lori gets mad or both. And
well, yeah.
If you can't, if that's going to always be the outcome, then don't play with him at all.
But as a step parent, as a step parent and a bio parent, I see your kids picking on my kid. And I jump into, they are intentionally excluding him, or they are intentionally being mean to him, or they are, I'll throw the word out there, bullying him.
Yeah. And you know what? They probably did from time to time intentionally do all those things.
Right. But then I remember the day it hit me, and I was like, wait a minute. My sisters and I fought like crazy.
Yeah, like physically.
Yeah. And those are some of the best memories that we have. We're like, remember that time that I beat you up over using my buff puff? Or remember that time you beat me up for playing with your doll that peed when you gave it juice? So I realized that, number one, I had to let them form these bonds. And unless they were really hurting my kid, like messing up his brain mentally or physically abusing him, more so than a brother would, I guess you would say.
I mean, just there's a difference between picking on somebody and being malicious. I don't know that I would say they were ever malicious.
Oh, but Ethan.
I think, yeah, I know you're going to go with that. I don't think Ethan was even being malicious. I think Ethan was just being stupid.
Yeah. Because there was one time that Ethan got mad that I had wrapped Jackson up in all these clothes for them to play airsoft. It was like the Christmas Story movie where the kid couldn't even move. He was wrapped up so much in the coat and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ethan would get mad because they were shooting Jackson, and Jackson wasn't even flinching. So he ended up shooting his hand because his hand was exposed. And it was bad. It was bad. And I thought it was an accident until probably 5 years later. And then I found out it was on purpose. But Jackson said, it's okay. It got rid of that wart that was on my hand. But it did. It hurt. I know it hurt my baby. So that made it difficult for me to, in that situation, I wanted to beat Ethan up. It's no different than a kid at school messes with your kid. You want to go beat him up. It doesn't matter that you and I were in a relationship. This kid hurt my kid. So I want to come to his defense, and I want to make sure this doesn't happen. But anyway, to say all that, I did realize that I had to step back from that. And that was hard. But I also started seeing them bond when I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then Branson proceeds to tell us a story about how, we would pick on him and, aggravate him, whatever. And he said, but one time we saw this kid picking on Jackson at that school outside on the playground. He said it didn't take 2 seconds, and me and Ethan both were over there about to whoop that kid.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I'm like, oh, y'all love my baby.
Yeah, it's like, I can pick on him, but you can't pick on him.
Right. But that's a brotherly and sisterly thing.
Exactly.
And so a lot of times, again, as a step parent, we're looking at it as you're treating my kid like the redheaded stepchild or you're excluding my kid. Well, sometimes he was excluded, but it's because there were 4 of your kids and there wasn't physically room for a 5th in certain situations.
Yeah. It's because McDonald's didn't make the tables big enough.
Yeah. Or something like that, but it hurt my heart. But again, if I would say something to Jackson, like, I'm sorry that there wasn't room for you to sit over there with him. He's like, it's okay. It didn't bother him. It bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jackson would tell me if stuff bothered him. He got so mad at Ethan one time. Ethan was the rebellious child. We've talked about that.
You said it was.
He is the rebellious child. We were at the pool. Ethan had a water gun, shot Jackson. He was mad. And Jackson and I were sitting on the front porch, and I was trying to calm him down because it hurt him physically. I don't think that was the intent. I really don't. But Jackson looked at me and he said, David needs to give Ethan up for adoption. I don't even know why he keeps him.
Yep.
So, of course, that made me bust out laughing. And Jackson's like, why are you laughing? I'm serious. Like, get rid of the bad kid.
Yeah, just take him to the pound.
Yeah, take him to the pound. But Branson also was talking to me about how I reacted to them with things. And one memory that I have was we were going to a relative per se's house at the beach. And it was a smaller place. And there's a lot of us. And there's a lot of glass. And a lot of nice things. And a lot of shells that meant a lot to this person.
It was not kid-friendly.
It was not kid-friendly. That's a good way to put it. So I was on edge the whole time. And sure enough, one of the kids broke a shell.
Right.
I felt horrible. So I told Branson what I would have done differently in that case is we never would have went there.
Mm-hmm.
We would have rented a condo because when you rent places, this was somebody's second house kind of thing, beach house, whatever you want to call it. So it's not like people rented it. We were using it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have avoided that completely because, again, we don't realize how much we create our own stress.
Mm-hmm.
By us taking them somewhere that was somebody I knew really well and I was worried about their stuff getting messed up, I created a lot of stress. So my stress, in turn, turned around to the kids as frustration.
Yep, which caused problems with me and you.
Mm-hmm. And then I told him another time, same when we were at the beach, is when it took us 45 minutes to get everything together, to lug it down to the beach like pack mules. I mean, we were loaded down. And we set everything up. They get in the water, maybe 5 minutes, and they come back and said, let's go back and get in the pool. And we're like, no, not going to happen. No, David was on my side with that one.
Yeah, because I was the one hauling everything down there.
That's not true. We were all packed down. We made them carry stuff too. But again, now I don't think I overreacted or anything like that, but I was thinking about times that we did have issues. And I didn't bring this up with Branson, but those of you that have listened to us before, you may have remembered mention of Yoohoo Gate. Branson, Ethan, and I got into a very big disagreement, argument, almost physical fight over a Yoohoo.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, it's a chocolatey drink.
Yeah, it's like chocolate milk, but fake chocolate milk.
Yeah.
And they were for Jackson's lunch, I think it was. And they had gotten one. And so I said something about it. Well, then they, in turn, got smart with me. And then the next thing I know, I'm standing at the bottom of the stairs. They're standing at the top. And Ethan bucks his shoulders up like he's going to fight me. And, of course, this was pre-Nacho, y'all. So Lori was off the chain. I'm like, come down here, little boy. Come on down. I knew better than to go up the steps because there was 2 of them up there. I wouldn't have made it halfway up the steps. They'd kick me down the steps. I'm not stupid. I was a little ignorant then, but not stupid. What I would have done differently then knowing what I know now or after learning to nacho, I would have said, David, can you stop by the grocery store on your way home and get some more Yoo-Hoos, please?
Yeah. So let's just hypothetically say a pack of Yoo-Hoos was $6. Mm-hmm. So you cost...
And say there were 12 in the pack. Just say there were 12.
Yeah.
50 cents per Yoo-Hoo.
So 50 cents is all it took for you to go off the chain. It's just, when you start looking at things like that and you put it in that perspective, it's like ridiculous. Like how much is your peace of mind worth? 50 cents. How much is your stress worth? 50 cents.
But again, it's one of those things. It was not the action or the Yoo-Hoo. It was what it represented.
Mm-hmm.
It represented they didn't listen to me. They knew those were for Jackson's lunch because they bought their lunch at the time and Jackson took his.
Mm-hmm.
It was like they were doing it on purpose to not just not listen to me, but to prove they didn't have to.
Right.
And then, of course, their reaction to me just fired me up even more.
Yeah. And then by the end of it, it's like we're not even addressing the Yoohoo incident anymore. Now we're addressing everything that happened after that.
And before.
Right.
Yeah, because you kick into anything that happened before and all the anger festers. And that's something I want people to understand about the Nacho Kids method. It is not sweeping those things under the rug. That's what a lot of people think. Sweep it under the rug, sweep it under the rug. No, you sweep it under the rug, you're going to be a volcano and go off on somebody one day. And it might be a little old lady in Walmart.
It's also not just disengaging, because I understand that the term nacho typically means disengaging. But the Nacho parenting method uses that as one single piece of a much larger framework.
Right.
And so for those people who are like, I was nachoing before it was a thing. No, you weren't. You were disengaging before you knew what nachoing was as far as your understanding of it. But if you're just disengaging, you're not following our methodology. You're simply doing typically step one. That's it. Like if this is a 30-step program, which is, that depends on where you're at. Let's just say 12-step. If you go to AA and you're in a 12-step program, you do step one, you don't say, I'm doing AA.
Or I've completed AA.
You're not. You did one thing.
Yeah. And I get, like you say, a lot of people will say it, and I say it. I will say, well, I would nacho that.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But I don't mean just disengage. I mean the whole emotional stepping back, the whole putting things into perspective, the whole gamut, the whole 12-step program. Right. That's what I mean when I say it. But a lot of people do have the misunderstanding that it is just disengaging.
Right. And this is one of the issues, and this is not just with nachoing. This issue runs across time and space and a bunch of different areas, which is when you use the same word to mean different things to different people, you're going to get misunderstanding. So if you say nacho and somebody else says nacho, but you both have two very different understandings of what that is, then you're not having a conversation that makes sense because the words don't make sense.
Right. Exactly. But I'm glad Branson asked me those questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And after you walked out, he started asking me questions.
Yeah, I know. That's why I left.
We were talking to him for 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I enjoy our talks. I've always enjoyed talking to him. But one of his questions was, Dad, did it bother you when I would talk to you and ask you so many questions? And you're like, no, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that we also talked to him about was the things that we did differently than BioMom did.
Mm-hmm.
And how he perceived those things.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And he perceives them, of course, differently now. But he admitted he even perceived them a little differently then.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, if just say BioMom takes the kid shopping and the kid goes, I want this. Oh, we'll go ahead and get it. Right? No big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then with you, they see something and you say,
put it on your Christmas list.
the kid's like, well, I'm never getting anything. I have to put everything on my Christmas list. But of course, Branson understands that now. And he said he actually uses that on his girlfriend now. That she'll say, oh, I love that. I'd like that. And he's like, put it on your Christmas list.
Yeah. It's the easy way of not telling somebody no.
And here's something even funnier, y'all. There was a time that Branson, now David always had to have the kids' Christmas list in August.
Oh, yeah, because I was done shopping before Black Friday. I was done with Christmas.
Yeah, if not in October. So you were always done. But Branson had given you a list. All the kids had given you their list. You got what was on the list. Christmas morning, Branson's like, I don't want any of this crap. I want what Ethan got, and I want that Avery got. You know, I want this other stuff.
Right.
And so you're like, you don't want any of it? And he's like, no. You said, okay. And you took it all back.
I sure did.
Now, y'all, Lori was not in the picture. David was still with his ex. So do not blame stepmom on this, because I had nothing to do with it. In fact, I would have probably fought with David and talked him out of doing this, because not only did he take the gifts back, he didn't replace them with anything.
Nope. The Christmas you got nothing. And you know what he said?
He doesn't remember it.
I know. I don't remember that.
How could you not remember that? I'm thinking he should be in therapy over that.
Yeah.
Like, this one year, my dad took all my Christmas presents back, and I lost my trust in humanity, and just this whole thing. And Christmas has never been the same. And I start getting depressed around Christmas because I have flashbacks, you know, but he does not remember it.
I know, which is sad, because I wanted him to remember that moment for the rest of his life.
Well, he definitely does not.
It'll come back up. It's a regressed memory. It'll come back.
Yeah. Yep.
He'll start remembering bits and pieces of it, and then he'll fill in the difference, which we actually saw when we were talking to him yesterday. Lori and I often have conversations about how your memories cannot serve you well, because they can be made up. And it's not because you're trying to make them up. You just don't recall things properly. And during our conversation, he made a comment about when they graduated from high school and some stuff I did for them. And Lori and I was like, no, that's not the way that happened. But he had a completely different memory of what happened than what really happened.
And what's funny is he was going to argue with us about it. I mean, not that he did, but he was like, no, this is what happened. We're like, no, that's not what happened. And then once you said it, I think he remembered. So a lot of times, y'all, your memories aren't the best. I don't care how young you are. If you research it, 60% of your memories are not true. There may be a little bit of truth in there, but the majority of what you're remembering is not true. It is influenced by something that you pictured in your head happened, or you thought happened, or that other people told you. You see these people and they're saying, oh yeah, I remember when I was 2, blah, blah, blah. No, you don't. You remember your mama or your daddy or your grandma telling you that. That's what you remember from being 2 and doing that.
Yeah, there's a lot of research around that that's really interesting, because there's even research where people didn't do a certain thing, but they were told they did, to the point where they believed it.
Right.
And it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, because you had said people had asked people what they were doing when 9/11 happened. And then they went back later and asked those people kind of those same questions. And the people were like, no, why did I say that? That's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, what?
Yeah, there was a majority of people who got it wrong. So anyway, interesting stuff.
Interesting stuff, for sure. All right. So, David, I say all that saying that I'm glad that Branson asked us these questions. And he said that when he comes back, which will be in June, well, not in June probably, but once he gets a little settled, that he wants all of us to do a podcast together and talk about these things.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I'm kind of scared. Like last night when he said, Lori, I want to ask you something. And I'm like, oh, no. And then he said, about how you acted when we were kids. I'm like, oh, no. Like, why can he not forget that crap? He don't remember the Christmas thing, but he'll remember Yoohoo.
Yeah. Well, Branson, for those who haven't heard the story, Branson is the kid who would call me before they come back from their moms. He would call me and say, is she still there? Mm-hmm. I mean, they were just wanting her gone so bad when we were at would you call it the high point of our low point? I mean, when things were at their worst, yeah. I mean, he would call, like, is she not gone yet? Like, are you still tolerating that mess?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what's funny too, though, is I think out of everybody, Branson was the most excited about us getting married.
Mm-hmm.
And then he quickly turned into the burn Lori at the stake leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's even some things now that I told Branson he's going to understand with how when him and Jackson would tell me something that were differing, I would believe Jackson. And I said, you're going to understand why I believe Jackson now because you've got a kid. You're going to believe your kid.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot that changes,
mm-hmm.
As the kid grows older, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's just a lot.
Yep.
And it's fun. I think it's fun as a parent to watch them start realizing some of these things and come back and have these conversations and tell you that they appreciate something that you have waited 15 years for them to get to that realization. And I know some people have waited a lot longer than that. And to some degree, I still have a kid that I'm going to probably wait another 20 years before that happens, if it happens at all. But it is nice to see that. And if nothing else, our kids can certainly stand and say that Lori and I both fought like crazy for our relationship.
Yep.
And before you say, oh, you're saying I should stay in an abusive relationship. No, I'm not saying that.
No.
I'm saying that our relationship was bad. There was no abuse going on. It was just terrible in every other aspect. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think we've dropped enough value bombs for today.
Value bombs?
Value bombs, yes. So somebody got some value from listening. Maybe we resonated with you. And if so, then great. Take what you've learned, implement it. Because if you learn it and you don't implement it, then have you really learned anything? If you don't do anything with it, it's just information. It's nothing. Right. So take it, implement it, see what happens. Go from there.
And if you are tired of struggling in your blend and want to see changes and are willing to do the work, join the Nacho Kids Academy.
Yep. I dare you.
I double dog dookie dare you. All right, folks.
All right. Remember, life is good
when you nacho.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nacho Kids Podcast. Find us online at nachokids.com. Until next time, remember, life is good when you nacho.